40inbox.com, and apparently, according to thehill.com, student loan payments are due in October after years long pause. And this is actually a really big deal because a lot of people sadly have not been paying their student loan payments. And so they have they have to be able to find the money within their budget. So the Department of Education has locked in when student loan payments will restart after the 3-year pause from COVID 19. Interest on student loan payments will begin in September and payments will resume in October, the department says on its website. The update says payments are restarting again because Congress recently passed a law preventing further extensions of the payment pause. The break in federal payments began under then President Trump in early 2020. The law that prevented further extensions of it was included in the debt ceiling agreement between President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy. We will notify borrowers well before payments restart, the department said, and the set date for restarting payment was first reported by Politico. Meanwhile, Biden's student debt relief plan, which would eliminate up to $10,000 in debt for some borrowers and up to $20,000 for others, is still at the mercy of the conservative leaning Supreme Court. The Biden administration has said that if his loan forgiveness is struck down, many borrowers could be at risk of default when payments recommence. His willingness to negotiate on the payment pause as part of the debt limit deal garnered the anger of many student loan advocates and supporters. The Biden administration has now publicly discussed any possibility of a backup plan for his forgiveness program. I guess for if his forgiveness program is struck down, and one of his major campaign promises in 2020 was getting $10,000 in student loan relief for borrowers. Now, the thing is that people don't understand is that technically there were already programs in place for student loan relief or debt forgiveness in certain circumstances. Now, what I saw to be like the biggest issue with all this is that pretty much the programs in place were so badly ran that like hardly anyone actually got approved. So for example, there was something that like you could have done, say like you served like 10 years in a not well off area to say the least. So you were sacrificing in terms of opportunity cost a higher income to serve a not so well community because all of your student loan debt would be forgiven after 10 years of serving that community. But the problem is, hardly anyone actually got accepted into that program. You had like basically like maybe only 4%, 5% of like tens of thousands of people apply for that program, literally spent 10 years of their life making less money than they could have been making, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, doing everything that they could have, and were not approved to get their student loan debt forgiven. Because basically, the scheme was that you'd be basically paying minimums for 10 years while crossing your T's and I's, while doing basically everything that it required of you. And after the 10 years are up, your debt amount would disappear. That was the plan, and hardly anyone got approved for that. So, anytime I see like the government try to say that they're going to do something to try to help people, especially like financially speaking, don't believe it because literally everything they do suck. Like everything they do sucks completely, right? They are so inefficient. They can't get anything done right. It is beyond sad. If you look at any sort of government institution and see what they're actually like using to get stuff done, it is beyond depressing. They basically have computers from like 30 years ago. They have internet from like 15 years ago or 10 years ago, or got the crappiest internet ever or the cheapest internet ever. They have employees that literally just do not care about their job or you, so things take way longer to get done. Now, of course, that's not every employee, but for the most part, if you are a government employee, let's say for like the DMV, you're pretty much not really caring at all in terms of your job. Now, what people need to do is they need to start cutting back. If you're like in a situation where you're starting to have to deal with this pretty soon, start cutting back, start basically creating a budget so that you can start actually having money to pay the student loan debt down if you haven't started to do that yet. Because this is going to get bad really quick. There's going to be so many people that believed that they were going to get these $10,000 forgiven when it was basically never going to happen, ever, right? Don't put faith in the government to fix your problems. Don't trust the government as if they like care about you because they don't. Like the only person that cares more about your life in the world is you. Like the only one that truly cares about your life is you. So you gotta actually like find a path to make it better for yourself. But that's basically my suggestion. You need to cut down expenses, create a budget, and start paying down your debt. Now, the best way to typically get out of debt, which by the way, if you want to learn how I got out of debt and grew my net worth, go to 40inbox.com or in the description below. But typically, the method is actually a very simple method, right? What you want to do is structure your debt in a way that you can end up getting success or get motivation pretty quickly and then move on. So to put into perspective, let's say that you got three different credit cards, right? You have one credit card at like $500 in terms of like the balance that it has on there. You have another credit card that has like 1500, and then you get another credit card at like 20 grand worth of debt on it, right? The way that you would structure it to make it easier on you to actually get it done is what you would call the snowball method, where you pay minimums on everything, but then put all the extra income that you have or the cash flow that you are bringing in on the smallest debt. And the reason why you want to do that is because we are humans and we are fueled by emotion. So if you are trying to like go after that $20,000 credit card balance, right? Not many people are going to be able to do that. Like just mentally speaking, because you're going to be grinding away potentially for like a year or more, depending on how much you make per year, like with no progress. Yeah, you're like chipping away at the debt, but it might take you like a year or more to actually be like, oh, I got rid of that credit card out of the three, right? But if you were to go with the smallest balance to the highest, regardless of interest rate, because really that doesn't really matter, is that you feel like you have actually done more than what you really did, right? It just gives you kind of like a positive feedback loop, right? So you are actually making progress. It's the same thing with like sticking with like a diet if you're trying to like lose weight. The faster you see progress and the more consistent you see progress, the easier it is for you to actually stick with it, right? Like imagine if like someone told you like, "Oh, you're going to spend the next year only eating chicken and rice and drinking water. That is all you're going to do, period, end of story, to lose weight," right? That's going to be pretty hard to stick with, right? You're going to be like, no, I don't want to spend a year doing that, right? But if you start to make progress by just doing something quick, right? Let's say you are someone that used to drink like 2 liter soda bottles, and the person only says, oh, all you have to do is change it to diet. That's all you got to do. You immediately make a positive feedback, right? Because you accomplished the goal of sticking to something, right? It's just like a different way to look at it is to make it easier on yourself to actually stick with it. Because you'd be knocking down like a $500 credit card balance debt very quickly. Same thing with the 1500 one. You could probably, depending on your income, get that done within like a couple months. So you knocked out like two debts within a few months, right? Compared to maybe not even knocking down one in over a year, basically. So that's the way to really view it. Like if you are struggling with trying to pay off debt right now, look at it in a way, okay, where can I get these small wins fast so that I could just move on to the next thing and then move on to the next thing and then move on to the next thing, right? Because again, anyone can do something for a very short amount of time. Not many people can stick with something for a very long time, right? All of us can basically sprint like 10 feet, right? Pretty easily, right? Even without any warning. But imagine you just told someone, hey, go run that marathon of like 5 miles. People are just blatantly going to refuse, right? And they're not going to be able to make it. But if you just say, like, hey, you could just sprint like 10 feet there. Oh, that's just do that today. That's your cardio today, right? Sprint 10 feet. That's all you got to do, right? And just the next day, oh, now sprint 15 feet. Oh, now sprint 20 feet, etc. And just keep on moving it, moving it, moving it, just to get those small little wins. See you in future episodes.